Hello team, welcome to another ATP Geopolitics video with myself, Jonathan MSP. It's another Ukraine war breaking news update for the 3rd of September 2024. An awful lot is happening today, and if I leave it all to tomorrow, it'll just make my news pieces in the morning absolutely massive. So we've heard that there's been this huge strike on Poltava. I'm going to give you just a little update to that before getting onto my main subject, and that is that now they're saying 51 are dead in that strike on the six-story building, communications, operations, training center in Poltava hit by possibly a double tap, two Iskander missiles. There was not enough warning. People apparently might have been running to take cover in bunkers and whatnot, and they got hit doing that. There was talk about it being a parade as well. There are many people angry in Ukraine at the moment, super angry. This is a huge number of deaths, possibly 220 injured, 51 killed at least, right? And this could have been avoided. They haven't learned after 3 years, you know, coalescing that many people around open spaces in range of Iskander missiles, having a parade, that kind of thing is not, if that happened, is not going to be well met by the families and friends of those who have died and been injured, and also by the general public. So there's going to be some outrage happening, no doubt, as a result of this. I know that Greg Terry is going to do a live later where he's going to be talking a lot about this. I'll try and drop into it, but I don't know if I can. So Dmitry Kuleba, the foreign minister, says Poltava is another reason why deliveries of air defense systems to Ukraine should be accelerated. We will not get tired of reminding about it. Partially destroyed one of the buildings of the Institute of Communications, a hospital and nearby houses. Debris removal continues, according to the Prosecutor General, that last part. So yeah, real terrible tragedy there. As Tim White says, the continual lack of info and pics and access for journalists heightens the suspicions over what else might have been hit. Obviously there's going to be an awful lot of footage out there of dead bodies and horrific scenes, and many of those have not found their way yet to socials, thankfully, but there are some ones that I have seen. It seems like it's an absolute terrible tragedy, that one, for sure. Now what we're going to do, that's not what I was going to say mainly. So what I was going to talk about is the idea that there is going to be a massive governmental clear out tomorrow, or moving aside, including Commission, top guy in charge of strategic industries, who's handed his resignation in, and he's done an insanely good job, although there's also rumors he might be moving to a position in defense. But I was only talking about him this morning because he's interviewed by Christiana Amanpour on CNN, and it's a very good interview showing how Ukraine really wants money at the moment in order to be able to build at the capacities that they have. They've got this potential capacity, or no, they've got a capacity and the potential to build an amount of stuff. They're just unable to do so because they need the money to do that. And that's really frustrating. Anyway, Ukrainian MP David Arakhamia announced that a government reshuffle is expected this week. He stated that tomorrow will be a day of dismissals, followed by a day of new appointments. According to Arakhamia, more than 50% of the cabinet and ministers of Ukraine will undergo changes. Sort of thing that you would expect, possibly at times of war, especially when things are not going very well. Things are going well in some aspects, and then you lose an F-16, then you have your energy infrastructure absolutely hammered yet again by the Russians, and then you have Poltava putting strains on the Ukrainian armed forces, even though they're doing quite well in Kursk. So I'm going to be talking through the frontline update a little bit later, but just to talk about this, it's really important. Now, this is just to let you know, big political changes, said to Tim White, and the big one is that Commission is going to step aside or move aside, or is certainly resigning from his present position. Parliament received resignations from 3 ministers and an application to dismiss Vitaly Koval as head of State Property Fund. So there is possibly some scandal. There's also, we'll talk about a little bit about the energy situation, the energy minister. The biggest surprise name in the previous resignations is popular Alexander Commission. He was head of Ukraine's railways at the start of the full invasion, as I said before, and he did an exceptional job with that. So he's moved to the strategic industries minister, where he's been procuring equipment and upscaling the defense industry in Ukraine and working with other allies and entities. So he says he's going to work in a different role in defense, though. So that's possibly some good news, and maybe using his abilities to an even better outcome. The scandal is over. Zelensky blaming head of Ukrainago Volodymyr Kurdytsky for the failing to protect energy facilities, but foreigners on Ukrainago's board, Petr Andreasen, and vastly experienced chair Daniel Dubeny resigned, saying it was politically motivated. So there is some controversy there. Well, actually, there's a thread about this. We'll look at the earlier thread and then go into this thread because I think it could be revealing. So an earlier thread by Mattia Nellis here says, yesterday the board of Ukrainago decided to remove Volodymyr Kurdytsky, a chairman of the board of Ukraine's energy transmission company. He was widely viewed as an effective manager, also by international partners. So why is he removed now? First, the decision to remove him came from the very top. Forbes reports Zelensky and his team explicitly pushed for it, but this raises questions. Why did the leadership decide to remove him now while Russia continues to pound the country's grid? On the surface, there may have been corruption allegations raised, and a lot of anonymous Telegram channels have attacked him. That's Kurdytsky, for allegedly overseeing the purchase of overpriced bulletproof vests in March 2022. To me, the allegations against him seem phony at best. The country's anti-corruption agencies interviewed him as a witness for an investigation into how the company bought bulletproof vests in March 2022, but did not press charges against him. Later, the High Anti-Corruption Court ordered the National Anti-Corruption Bureau of Ukraine to open pre-trial investigations. I'm rather confident that these investigations will result in nothing, as he and others in his defense have argued. To quickly buy quality bulletproof vests at the beginning of the full-scale invasion did cost significantly more than prior market price. So far, no corruption scheme has been identified. If you apply these high standards, you would have to sack probably all the government actors and agencies that engaged in procurement in the early phase of the full-scale invasion. That's not to say procurement violations should not be investigated. Other reasons discussed by some media are allegations that Ukrainago did not sufficiently protect the energy infrastructure it oversees. The allegation is serious, but misses the fact that the political responsibility for civil protection falls with the Ministry of Energy. In my humble opinion, Kurdytsky was removed for other reasons. It rather seems that this is an attempt by the country's energy ministry to control the corporate management of the critical SOE. What you need to know, Ukrainago is a state-owned joint stock company. It ensures the provision of electricity transmission services and dispatch management of the country's energy system. The company also administers commercial accounting and settlements in the market. Controlling the management of Ukrainago gives the Ministry of Energy significantly more power. It remains to be seen what this means in the short term. For instance, Kurdytsky was a big proponent of incentivizing private companies to produce decentralized energy. The private distributed generation of electricity is not much supported by the Energy Ministry, and I believe that the change of Ukrainago will affect the medium to long term endeavor to reduce a reliance on large SOEs. So state-operated enterprises. Basically, you have strategically operated enterprises? Anyway, these entities that have state control, but they are used to strategically for the betterment of the state, obviously, or private energy companies producing electricity. In short, the removal of Kurdytsky is a painful reminder that Ukraine needs to reform the corporate governance of SOEs to ensure oversight and minimize political influence peddling over SOEs. That was an issue before the invasion and has to be tackled ASAP. Then he adds to that, after I penned this, Ukrainago's scandal escalated even further. 2 independent members of the supervisory body of Ukrainago resigned and issued a sharply worded statement calling Kurdytsky's removal politically motivated without valid grounds. In their resignation statement, Daniel Dubeny and Petr Andreasen write, quote, "We believe that the decision is to prematurely dismiss the head of Ukrainago is politically motivated, and based on the results of the presented report, there are no valid grounds for it." Statement continues, "From the first days of our work in the supervisory board of Ukrainago, we felt political pressure and observed constant attempts to bypass the competition to appoint people whose professional qualities were doubtful. Today, in conditions where the corporate management of the company, according to OECD standards, is called into question, we do not see the possibility of continuing with our work in the supervisory board of Ukrainago. Violating the principles of corporate governance and making a decision to dismiss its manager without proof of improper management is unacceptable and may affect affect Ukrainigo's further cooperation with ENTSOE member operators. Yaroslav Zelensky, MP from Holla, so a parliamentarian, wrote on Telegram that this is only the beginning of the scandal. Quote, "This means that the entire supervisory board is collapsing. There must be a majority of independent members, and this means huge problems with foreign loans and donors." Earlier, Zelensky said that he suspected the real reasons for the dismissal of Kurditsky to be, quote, "the animalistic desire to control all financial flows connected with Ukrainigo." Unfortunately, I tend to agree with the opposition MP. In other words, this could be a governmental scandal involving wanting full control over Ukrainigo, which is obviously going to annoy foreign supervisory board members who want to allow for competition and so on and so forth, in line with OECD guidance, etc., etc. So we have a bubbling scandal with regards to the energy ministry, and that's going to be so important that they are in place and doing what they need to be doing, because we are going into autumn now, and the energy distribution and generation sector is going to be vitally important for the continued functioning of the entire country, right? From your everyday civilian life to commercial life to the defense industry to industrial output in general, etc., etc. You need energy, and you need that distributed and protected. And if you've got a clearing out or a mass resignation of the people responsible for that in autumn, at the beginning of autumn, then you could be facing a little bit of an issue. Now, the government is also clearing out other ministers. Now, is this politically motivated, or is this trying to freshen up? I mean, we have cabinet reshuffles in peacetime in the UK, for example, very often. And that happens in order to freshen up, or for political reasons, or this person's not doing a very good job, or we don't like him because actually X, Y, Z. These are natural things that happen during any kind of rule. The pressures are going to be even greater. It's going to be an absolute pressure cooker of an environment, politically speaking, in Ukraine at the moment. And so it's highly likely that people are going to be not getting on with their jobs, or seem to be not getting on, or rubbing the wrong people up the wrong way, or whatever. This is going to happen even more in a time of war, and so we should kind of expect that. But also, is this a sign of political cracks appearing in the Zelensky administration? What's going on? I guess we'll have to see. It'll be interesting to see whether those resignations are people getting moved from one place to another, or whether some people are just out. You're not just going to reshuffle the same people into different positions. You are going to take new people in, and as new people come in, some people are going to go. Who will lose their jobs? I hope Kamishin stays. He seems to be really good at what he does. It could be that he is getting some kind of promotion, although his job at the moment is insanely important for providing the Ukrainian armed forces with the requisite equipment, being proactive, reactive, cooperative, working with entities, foreign and domestic alike. So lots happening there. On the back of some bad news for the Ukrainians in certain aspects, but also, potentially good news in other. They are supposedly, as according to the Finnish Prime Minister, in a better position than they were 3 months ago, the Ukrainians. So on the one hand, some things are moving in the right direction. Procurement of weaponry and ammunition is coming in at a greater level than it was previously, but there's still so many needs. Restrictions need to be lifted. And etc., etc. So it's there's so much going on at the moment. We'll have to see how these movements and this political upheaval sits within the wider context of this war. And I'll as ever keep you abreast of all the necessary information. I hope this was a useful little breaking news piece. I think it was important enough to do that. I just fear that there's going to be so much to talk about tomorrow. I wanted to be ahead of the game today. Anyway, take care. Speak soon.